Well, it's a joy to be with you as we now enter into another week to see God do great things. No matter what happens around us, God's a great God, and He's ready to do great things in our lives if we will trust Him. One of the things that's hard for us right now is to really grasp the fact that people are opposed to the values that we have. And it's hard to read editorials and opinion pieces that are so negative about Bible Christianity, to hear reports in the media, even to hear our major politicians say things that are directly contrary to the Word of God. And that can cause real distress in us. In some ways, truth ought to be loved and cherished, and it should bother us. But I think at times it personally bothers us, and then we lose having the blessing of God when we do that. Well, Moses certainly could have felt very much the injustice of the situation he was feeling. His own brother and sister were questioning him and his authority to have leadership. There was so much pressure taking those Israelites through the wilderness. And they were questioning the fact that, has God only spoken through Moses? And then we read in verse 3 of chapter 12 of Numbers, "Now the man Moses was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth." Instead of allowing himself to react, he gave up his rights, wanting the best for everyone, and God stepped in. We read in verse 4, "And the Lord spake suddenly unto Moses, and unto Aaron, and unto Miriam, Come out, ye three, unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out. And the Lord began to speak." Now I mention this because God defends Moses. The Word of God here defends him. Not because he's such a wonderful man. He was a man that trusted the Lord and wasn't living for himself. He had a meek spirit, a trusting and faithful spirit. As a result, God came into that equation and changed it very abruptly. God had chosen him to be the one to speak, and his brother and sister, Aaron and Miriam, were wrong. And we need to know that God at any time can change the equation. We've seen that in our country over and over. We've seen it with the political realm. We've seen it in just the mood of the country. We've seen it with great revivals in the past. We've seen it with churches affecting communities by the power of God. And we need to believe that God will step in if we will be like Moses, wanting God's reputation to be upheld, wanting to serve the Lord, wanting to be in the will of God, not living for ourselves. If we'll have that kind of heart, we don't need to fear. God will take care of the situation. Paul says the same thing. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations, and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. And that's dealing with the opposition that Paul was facing. So friends, as we look around us and we see all of this, remember, God's on the throne. Whatever we have to take through it all, God will turn it to good. But God can change the equation. And if we will seek Him and pray and not be intimidated, I think we'll be amazed what God will do in the days ahead.